Let's explore autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 136 of a series. Alright, in the last video I left off with Laura Tysonsick. Tysonsick? Tisonsick is how you spell their last name. I was reading a response, a back and forth exchange with the originator of the Hear Their Silence rally, Carol Frusella. And I'm going to pick up where I left off. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit to bring awareness to autism. This is the response to that by Laura. So the person who wrote this email wrote, they wanted to bring awareness to autism. And this is an autistic responding to that. Awareness for what purpose? A rally in Washington? It just so happens that my area of special interest is politics. I seem to remember that generally groups that want to bring public awareness to an issue spend their money on public service announcements and similar campaigns. Groups that want to bring their agenda to Congress, money for a cure, generally rally in Washington. It's a simple matter of cost effectiveness and awareness of what about autism? Of our silence? Of how pitiful we look on your posters? Of every imaginable heartstring pulling stereotype you could pull out of a hat for fundraising purposes? Or maybe that those of us who are adults have all have 3 PhDs, a Nobel Prize, and no longer need help? I would prefer the world be aware of something bona fide about autism. I, after all, have to live with the prejudices you're trying to build. Let me repeat that again. Laura states, I, after all, have to live with the prejudices you're trying to build. There's a few more back and forth, but Laura ends the response with, you never had unity. You left us, our needs and our priorities out as usual. You've chosen to insult and humiliate us with everything from the name of the rally to the poster children to the appeals to pity. You are blatantly lying when you say you are only about autism awareness. How on earth can you be shocked by this? And what Laura is stating there back in 2000, we are living now. We are absolutely living the prejudices these parent founders built for us, the stigma, and worse. Yeah, much worse. But I'm going to share a little bit about what Bernard Dremlin stated during this 2000 hearing. I can't share it all because he goes into deep misinformation, myth, conjecture. But why? Why are they doing this? It's about power and money. Real specifically, it's about the power where to direct money. Listen. We'll start with this part. When my own son, Mark, again, this is from testimony given in April 6, 2000 congressional hearing by Bernard Dremlin. My own son Mark was born in 1956 as a severely autistic child from birth. Our pediatrician, who had been in practice for 35 years at that time, had never seen a child or heard of such a child. When Mark was 2, my wife and I found the word autism for the first time in a textbook. I was at that point 5 years beyond my PhD in psychology, never having heard of or seen the word autism before. It obviously was a very rare disorder, extremely rare. None of us had heard of it. Today it is extremely common. There is hardly a high school kid in the country who has not heard of autism. It is a household word now, and it's not because of the movie Rain Man, which, by the way, Bernard Dremlin was the reference person on that and had lots of influence on the direction of that movie. right? So, despite denials from some experts, there is a terrible, despite denials from some experts, see, the answer's always been here. They just don't like it. All right, despite denials from some experts, there is a terrible worldwide epidemic of autism. In the mid 1960s, after my book, Infantile Autism, was published, I began hearing from parents throughout the world whose children had been normal until given this preventative medication at the doctor's office. I'm having to paraphrase here a bit, for the censors of misinformation will knock this video off if I don't do that. I began to make note of it and ask questions about it in form letters I sent out to parents seeking information about autism. All right, I'm going to skip forward on this. There is a lot of medical misinformation and myth packed into here. Remlin is so vastly well known for this, but let's get to the point. He wants to convince everyone there is an epidemic. So he says, as the editor of the Autism Research Review International, his publication, his organization, I have just reviewed a very large number of studies on the genetics of autism. The next issue of the Autism Research Review is going to contain our review study. The results of our review are spectacularly inconsistent. The best guess is that there are at least 20 different genes that may be involved in the causation of autism. Genes are not the answer to the question, even though at one time I was very much in favor of looking at that hypothesis. I am still interested in the hypothesis, but is certainly not responsible for the increase in autism. So you see how he's trying to diminish some information and lend credibility to other information, and this is what frustrates me. Oh my gosh, even to today, people still believe in some of the things that Rimland stated, and they're so not true. So he goes on to state, as a parent and full-time professional researcher, I am bitterly disappointed with the medical establishment's dismissal record with regard to autism over the past 60 years. The medical schools, as well as the government agencies, have consistently supported outmoded, unproven, and even disproven ideas, including the one that autism was caused by refrigerator mothers. I do thank you, Rimland, for banishing that theory that separated families permanently. It was horrible. Anyhow, even disproven refrigerator mothers who did not love their children, thus causing autism. The medical establishment was opposed to behavior modification, or what is now called the ABA approach. ABA is controversial, always has been. It still is. It didn't Rimland states, they said that this was not a way to treat autism because autism was based on deep-seated emotional problems. So a technique that is used to train animals cannot be used to improve autistic children. He states that was untrue. They have ignored and continue to ignore the long series of studies conducted both in the United States and Europe showing that the elimination of foods containing gluten and casein from the diet brings about marked improvement in many autistic children. They have consistently ignored this information that is false, conducted by researchers in 6 countries, which shows that almost half of all autistic children and adults respond to favorably high doses of vitamin B6 and magnesium. All his pet studies, with no adverse reports from any of these studies. 11 of these. So he just goes on and on and on through his pet studies. But here's the key, the money part. Listen real close to this part. Tens of millions of dollars have been spent on non-productive lines of research, while virtually no money at all has been given to research on methods of alternative medicine, which are far more promising in terms of both safety and efficacy. Tens of millions of dollars is what they want to have power over and where it is directed.